Welcome to another episode of Bite High No Limit. It's the podcast about people and their relationship with technology, and what a treat we've got this time round. Whereas I start my In Conversation podcast with Bob Pape. Bob Pape is well known for programming ZX Spectrum games. His most famous work is R-Type, where he used colourful graphics, which were quite a revelation for the ZX Spectrum, which was really accustomed to monochrome graphics to stop its legendary attribute clash. He wrote a book about it called It's Behind You, which you can find online for free as a download. It's on www.bizly.com. But as you'll find out, Bob's knowledge and talent span many different topics. So sit back and relax and listen to our conversation with Bob Pape. When I read your book, probably about 8 years ago, I've reread it, I've revisited it a few times, and yet I still find new things out about it. And it's like I sort of learn as we go along. So there's mentions of a TRS-80, then all of a sudden there's a podcast about TRS-80, and I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's, and Mercedes silver and black, and all that business, and how they crashed often and things. And it's sort of like what you wrote has been a magnet to other things that have, sort of conglomerated an interest, if you know what I mean. I'm terrible at games. So and also being an arcade boy, I was aware of Rampage and R-Type. So when they were mentioned in the teasers of Your Sinclair, I thought I knew what was coming. But I'd been conditioned into this constant underwhelmed state, really, when that came to conversions, because I played Bubble Bobble a lot in the arcades and Bomb Jack and things like that. And, you just became spoilt, really, by seeing the first, the coin-ops, I guess. But Rampage, couldn't believe it. It was, to me, it was as arcade true. I don't think I contributed to your or Activision's bottom line on that. I think that was on a C90 tape. But R-Type, I played a demo on the CMVG. I was absolutely blown away, and I was. But the thing is, I've only realised now at my ripe years that it was actually analysing patterns that actually get to the end, And I always had sort of like anxiety about putting 10p in. I was only getting like £1 a week, so I never played the machines. I just used to watch them in a trap mode, And you had the Karnov, Nemesis, and all them. And that was really good. So. Yeah, I'm not a, I'm not a completer game, and I've got a Spectrum in the corner and stuff like that. But I fire it up regularly, and I just stare at it and thinking, well, what do I play? So it's, so I really enjoyed your book. I love reading about the anecdotes of it, and the sharp practices that you came across.
You should hear some of the other stories from other coders.
Yeah,
I can't. I won't go into them, perhaps because of, they're libelous, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe.
and it's their story. I'm not going to steal their stories. So stuff like one coder telling me being bundled into the back of a transit van and being forced to work.
Wow.
Another telling me he was told he'd have to work Christmas Day to finish a game, to which he replied, I'm going to throw you out the window. Mark Cale, that's a whole chapter in itself. Mark Cale. Of all the people driving Porsches or Ferraris, it was Mark Cale and his brother. It wasn't the coders.
No.
And but when you're going back to say the fidelity of the games, Rampage, I only found out a few years ago what was missing from it, and it's there's a lot of Ralph can only certain things, George can only eat certain things, Lizzie, if she eats, I think it's a she, eats this will happen, and I thought there's a lot of it missing. There's but people still say it's Rampage. I think it's the 3-player aspect. I think it's probably the only one you can actually. God knows how you could play it 3-player around a spec, just on a keyboard.
Well, this is it, because you only had like 2 ports on a +2. Or if you had an interface too, and going at the back of it, but you'd need 2 joysticks and one geezer in the middle on the keys, maybe, or something like that. But I was hoping there was a game probably done by Bally as well at the time called Xenophobe,
Oh
And I
yeah.
think that was originally a 3 player, but I don't know if that actually converted over into like 3 players on the 8 bits. And Quartet, Sega's Quartet, that was a 4 player, but
Oh, you
I'm
had
not.
I mean, was Gauntlet multiplayer as well?
Yes,
I
it
can't
was.
remember.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
and then you had Dandy, which was I think was a well, it was a single player rip-off, knockoff of it.
yeah.
But I think Gauntlet was a well, 4 player in the arcades, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think it was 3 or 4. I think it's 3 on the PlayStation. I think that yeah, that's like getting quite modern and stuff. But there's a few multiplayers, but I never knew anybody else who had a Spectrum. I was sort of like a bit of a nomade. So like I didn't really. I guess you'd be quite, you wouldn't have like people who are rich enough to like play Rampage through in an arcade and
Oh,
also own a Spectrum. So
it's a
yeah,
boring game. It's a
yeah,
really boring game, to be honest. You go, wow, look at all this. I'm enjoying myself.
yeah,
Get rid of, the first level. Yeah, comes the second level.
yeah,
Yeah, it's all right. Yes, yes.
yeah.
And then here comes the third level. Hang on a minute.
Yeah, this is
This
it.
is
It's like the first level, and that's it. It's like insert American Town here.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
about 50. So I've got a printout somewhere or a screenshot of all the levels of the game, of all my game. And I think I put 40 or 50 in,
hmm.
but they're just, the same thing over and over. And that's the arcade. The arcade doesn't ramp itself up,
No,
despite the name. And
Rampage. Yeah, yeah,
it just carries on, and it's a money guzzler.
yes,
It's an idea game. It's someone came up with this. This is a good idea, and then they put the idea in as a screen and said, "Where do we go from here?" And they could have evolved it. They could have, we've got rectangular buildings and things. You could have gone with something, landmarks or something. I mean, I know they did Rampage World Tour
yes,
later on the consoles or maybe on the arcade as well. But you could have brought in different weapons. You could have brought in at least different backdrops. It's always that same bloody New York skyline, shadow at the back. You could have done something, bring in some clouds,
yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
it's the humour as well in the games, and I think that was all sort of like what was it, eating people when they're on the toilet and all that.
yeah, and
Yeah,
eating toilets. Yeah, that was the
yeah,
whole thing. If you had someone on the toilet, you got something. If you had a toilet, then it was something else. I didn't know that because, as I said, we never had the machine. We were just told to go to the arcade and play it, and there were three of us in a Swansea arcade with me and a cassette recorder in my backpack and a microphone over my shoulder going, 3 buildings, 1 red, 1 green, 1 blue. It's about half the size of the other one. And right now, oh, this one's got trams. This one, and it was like that. that was the game design. That was a game spec. It was that. It was ridiculous. It was madness.
but it was incredible, and again, sort of like you go into detail in the book, like the limitations that you had to actually adapt these games and put them onto a screen with a different resolution, but yet you still managed to pull it off. Did you find that, when you're playing these games, how much did that cost in financial terms just to keep going, or did you manage to flick it over to free play in the arcades, bung them a few quid to put it on free play?
Well, with Rampage, it was somebody else's money. It was Richard Kitely's, who probably he doesn't get a good write up in the book. Richard doesn't. For R-Type, that started out, as I said, it starts out. There's a lot of reverse memories on this, and people going, "Oh, it was great in the arcades and everything," but it wasn't. I showed from the advert, from Electrocoin advert. It's the last game they were advertising on their handouts. What was he on? The Black Tiger? Is it Black Tiger? Yes.
Yep.
I think Mr. Helly was on that sheet, and it comes after the pinball machines, and it was
And
a
Bar
case
X.
of
But there was we had loads of Bar X where we were. It's like, because they made a fortune per square foot, so everybody had a Bar X.
yeah,
Boom,
yes.
boom, 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 boom. That's all you used to hear all the way through.
To play it, there was an arcade in Oxford Street in London, and that's where I first saw it, because that's when we all went up. Everyone went up to look at these new games, and it was like, that's when I said, I pity the poor bugger who's going to do this one. But then it was a case of, all right, you've got the game now. Where is it? Oh, it's just in the Electrocoin up Tottenham Court Road. Now, you've got to go up there. You've got to go to London to play it. Then I got a tape of someone playing it, which was a lot better. But luckily, yeah, when you get tapes of people playing games, hopefully you are hoping they're playing it on invulnerability, and you're hoping they're not pushing the fire button.
Yeah.
Because as soon as something comes on the screen, you want to see what it does, rather than I'm going to blow it up, before it gets to me.
Yeah.
And then when I went to work with Carl, we had the arcade machine there, and then we could do what we liked with it. But with other games, yeah, I mean, with Dragon Breed, I got a jammer board and a lovely little portable unit. I could play that at home. But you kind of got what your company could afford. And the support, with R-Type, Irem supplied everything about 2 weeks after we finished the game. We kept asking for it. Lovely stuff, absolutely fabulous stuff, fantastic. I mean, if that went on eBay now, God knows what it would go for. But it was like a full manual, and not a tech manual, but the manual of the game. Someone had sat down and written it all out. And like for R-Type 2, they sent us sprite sheets, and every single sprite was on one sheet of paper, and it was a stack about that thick, and it was the orientations as well. It wasn't just this is a red alien. It was, this is a red alien facing this way, this is a red alien facing that way, this is a red alien facing that way, and that was all looked like inkjet printed. Again, original stuff from Irem. It's like, oh, get rid of it, don't need it. Give it to Mark Jones, the graphic artist, after he'd done the graphics.
Mm-hmm.
He probably chucked it away. Again, another one of those, worth a fortune. Wish I'd kept stuff. What about you? Have you got any old stuff you want to keep?
Well, I was given a TRS-80 when I was 10 and took it to pieces. I was, by the same person, I was given a Jupiter Race.
Oh, yes, yeah.
A shit Spectrum, as it was given to me as.
Yeah.
So I said, oh, if it's not Spectrum, and I'm only like 10 at this time, or 11, and the keyboard got glued to my computer studies folder when I was went to secondary school.
Oh, it was terrible. It wasn't just the keypad, it was the whole plastic.
Yeah, I know.
Awful.
And the plastic, yeah. I mean, it's I sort of compared it to a Kraft cheese slice left out in the sun, but you had a similar analogy for it as well.
Yeah, yogurt pot plastic. Yeah. I kept that under the bed. I used that, then I stuck it under my bed, and I came back to it years later, and it was caked in dust and everything. And I opened it up and went, chuck it in the bin.
Yeah.
I mean, what are they going for now? £600, £700, £800?
Yeah.
On eBay?
Easily, and it was like just a 1K POS. Really, it wasn't. When you look back, but yeah, it's amazing. And you talk about boards as well. I mean, in a previous episode, I was speaking with a programmer who went on to do 16-bit stuff in Hitman, who I grew up with in Jaywick, and we lived near an arcade called the Sunspot. And they were burning cabinets, asteroid cabinets. We could loot them at night. There was no one there. And I pulled out a full board with an engineer's manual still in its cellophane. And I kept that for a little while and then threw it away, and it's when the bin men could take anything in the good old days, And so I've had my fair share of stuff that I regret, obviously, thrown away as well. So I think it's quite common to anybody who gives a damn about the subject. They realise what they threw away all those years ago, but it was at the time junk. It was junk.
Well, I can show my age in that the first video game I played was actually Space War, the first game.
Yeah.
But it wasn't in America. It was ICL. It was to Letchworth, because ICL were based there. They had a training place there. And someone had burnt Space War into a cabinet there. And this is even before Pong.
Mm.
I think I was a bit afraid of it, to be honest, because I'd never seen anything like it, in my life. It was Defender, but it was that Space War. And funny enough, no, I didn't go, oh my God, I've got to do that. I just went, oh, that's cool. Oh, no, nah. And just moved on. So, regrets. I have a few, but then again, too few to make. Stuff like that. I mean, I'd seen a Vectrex and all its games in a second-hand shop for about £75.
Which is a lot of money. It's still a lot of money.
Not now, not today. This is, years and years ago. But I remember the Vectrex were being sold by Woolworths.
Yes.
And our local Woolworths, they weren't shifting, so they just sort of piled them up and said, take them away, can buy 50 quid or whatever it was, and we'll chuck in the games. And I go, no, I don't want that. I don't like that. It's only got wire, Yeah. Again, Vectrex, regret again. We should have bought that.
Yeah, no, that's right. Well, no, yeah, because it's marketed by MB. I thought, well, they make Twister. They can't do they can't do computers. Not like Spectrum and all that. And also that takes us quite well to Meta Toys, where you started your
Metroid,
career.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
because they started out with corgis, and then they moved on to the dragon.
I don't know about move on. Yeah, corgi cars. They were Wembley as well. Wembley footballs, Wembley space hoppers, Wembley kites. That was up in Northampton. They were also doing Fisher Price. They were distributing Fisher Price from another factory, Skewen, Neath, on the outskirts of the next major city, the next major deprived place along from Swansea. And no, Dragon 32. What do you think Metoys and the Dragon 32 the production was? What's in your mind's eye about that? I'll tell you the reality of it then.
Okay, right. I'm gonna entertain you now. Okay, you got shiny floor, loads of people in lab coats all lined up there, just putting together. Maybe taking like a Coco badge off and putting a Dragon badge on, maybe, or something like that. Yeah, loads of people that you'd see working at Tefal, maybe.
Where it was in a room about the size, probably about the size of your bedroom. And what it was, they bought in the components. It was along a wall where you had the warehouse and a narrow little gap where you had to walk through to get out the door. And as you walked past, you would walk past the guillotine, which is what they used to cut the cards for the back-ins for the Corgi Juniors. And you walk down a little further, and then if you kept walking, you got to the toilets. But before you got to the toilets, there was one little room with a very locked door, I must admit. I did go in there once. They were, what do you call it? Sonic welding plastic. It's done through high intensity sound, I assume. And you stuck your head in, a big pile of stuff. But I mean, the building was, 1920s, 30s building. I don't think it's seen a white floor ever. And nobody in white coat. Funny enough, when it comes to white coats, there used to be a thing up in the Metoys in one of the toilets in Metoys. Sorry, this is clean, it's not dirty. And it was a little poem, and it said, "The working class can kiss my ass. I've got my white coat job at last." And that was it. If you wore a white coat at Metoys, you were management, and if you didn't, you were a worker.
Oh.
I had a white coat. But I wasn't really a manager.
Yeah.
Pretend it was just that. But no, it was a single room. I think they bought in a load of stuff. I was made redundant around this point. For all I know, yes, they did end up in a laboratory somewhere, but I very much doubt it.
Yeah. So how did that come about? Did one day just a pallet of computers turn up from somewhere and they've said, "Oh, this is our strategy"? Do you know what their thinking was behind it?
I haven't got a clue because you see, later on, Metoys was set up for plastic extrusion, and metal die casting. So later on, they had a contract with Duracell to do their torches. They were making the plastic for their torches. They were doing cheap throwaway type torches. So that was a contract, obviously, but there was nothing constructive in Metoys other than putting these components together. They weren't casting anything. They weren't pressing the cases. It just seemed somebody somewhere got an idea. And I don't think it didn't contribute to Metoys at all, really. I mean, they were a sinking ship. Even their cars couldn't keep up with Hot Wheels. I mean, it's pretty much documented the reason people like Dinky and Metoys, Corgi went down the tubes was Hot Wheels came along. Because they had, you had these cars and they were, I had them as well. They were all these American muscle cars and fantastic colors. And the wheels, they're called Hot Wheels for a reason. Mm-hmm. You put them on a track and off they go. Whereas the Corgi were always known for their sort of, we're very accurate. Yes, I mean that's how they kind of took the lead before with Dinky, because they came in with things like, we have doors that open. We have you can steer the car with a little steering wheel. It's interactive. And so they took the market. But then, of course, someone else came along and said, yeah, but can your car do this? Zoom, but, wow, I'll grab some of that. And then who wants a die-cast model of a milk float or something? Yeah, I'm exaggerating a bit here, but that was the kind of thing they did. If you wanted the state coach, the Queen's state coach, and Prince Philip waving and everything, it's corgi, but you don't play with that. You put that on the shelf and go, don't you touch that. That's going to be worth a fortune one day.
Yeah. I think that you've articulated that perfectly. I think the Hot Wheels were sort of like the they were traded and scratched up,
Yeah,
distressed. Let's crash them together, and all
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And if you were gifted like a dinky or a corgi or something like that, it was like keep the box, and all that. And you're thinking, well, where's the fun? Where's the
Yeah,
fun in all that? It's sort of like they were the gifts from your grandparents, whereas like you were buying the Hot Wheels, from Woolworths. Maybe it's the enabler.
and of course, people then realize, oh God, Batmobile in its box. Oh, untouched. Wow, that's going to.
With the
And, you know,
bullets. Still got the bullets.
with the
Not
plastic
not matchsticks
bullets.
in it anymore. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
But even then, they changed that over the years. I mean, it used to come with the revolving tire cut. You pulled out the red plastic tire shredders and things like that, and the chain cutter at the front. And yeah, James Bond was a good one for that. That was the one with the pull-out tire shredders.
Yes.
They changed the Aston Martin DB over the years, but if you had one of the first ones, that's the one that had everything, and it just kind of got cheaper, over the years. That's the one I'd want.
Yeah.
That's if I was keeping them. But of course, he didn't know that at the time. That was my job. I went around the factory, and it would be you would have stacks of Batmobiles. You would have Aston Martins in metal trays to go into the warehouse. Piles of them. You never thought that. The funny thing was you weren't allowed. I mean, they had a shop there, but you were limited to certain cars because they realized that people would buy the good ones
and fence them off.
and sell them off cheap. So you had to order them. So you couldn't go to the shop and say, I'll have a Batmobile. They would tell you, this month you can have 1 or 2 Batmobiles and 1 James Bond. And you've got 30 days to get it. And then you haven't. It's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. Who did the Thunderbird 2? Sorry. Do you know who did that? Was that Dinky or Corgi?
I think that was Dinky. I've got the Corgi book. There's a fantastic hardback Corgi book of every model they've ever made. So I could tell you what it was.
Yeah, it was just weird. It was sort of like it was always green in my memory, but it was always like a silver metallic blue. I think the one that always wanted. The one that I lusted after. So it used to drop out the middle. The legs used to drop out.
Yeah,
the middle used to drop out, and then if you're lucky, there was like this little plastic Thunderbird 5 that was
Thunderbird 4.
4. Yeah, no,
5 was the
5
space
was
station.
the ISS.
Come on, basic blunder. Are you really? Do you know anything about this?
No, and this is
you got
this
notes, have you? You wrote the number down wrong.
I've got no notes, and this is the beauty of this is the trademark of a Bite High No Limit podcast. I get at least one detail wrong.
At least.
Yeah. That's it. So no, I do enjoy that. So that's So, do you have any cars hanging about, or did they go in the scrap heap along with all the other bits that we were doing?
Again, under the bed, there was a bag of old. You see, what you had were the Corgis, and then you had Corgi Juniors, and they were the smaller versions. And I had a few of them. I wasn't buying them when I was working there. These were when I was a kid. And I don't know if you've ever opened up a bag of old cars. There's a smell to it. There's a metallic smell to it. And of course, you think, oh, yeah, I've got these. They're worth a fortune now. And you look at it, and there's about that much paint left on it, because you can see what it's called Mazak, the material it's made from, underneath, and they're just banged to hell because we played with them and down. And I don't know what I did. I either chucked them out or gave them to a kid or something. But no, I haven't got any Metoy stuff at all. I don't think I'm trying to remember now. No, I haven't. I haven't got any Metoy stuff at all.
So when you're working at Metoys, then you sort of, that's probably how you started on your path of using computers as well. Was mainframe there, wasn't it? Or
yeah, the job was we were trainees and we would go around the factory and spend a few weeks in every department, and every department would say exactly the same thing without fail, and that was, imagine the factory as a wheel. We are at the hub. Without us, nothing would happen. So you go to buy in and they'd say, oh, if we didn't buy in the material, you couldn't sell the games. And then on the factory floor, they'd say, if we didn't make them, you couldn't, or if we didn't go, the warehouse didn't ship them. And I got that from the fire department as well. If the fire department's not here, oh, we got to shut down the factory. We are the hub at which everyone else revolves. And it literally was that. So the idea was at the end of 2 years, we'd become fully trained up in all the intricacies of all the ins and outs of Metoys, and then we become managers. And but two of us, as I say in the book, there were four of us. Two of us ended up as computer operators, which has got zero managerial prospects. Really, where do you go from being a computer operator? So.
Unless a bigger computer comes along, then you can work that. But yeah, it's very much a linear. You're there, aren't you? You're siloed up.
Yeah, there's nowhere to go. If you're an operator, your next step up is chief operator. And there were only three of us on the shift, so and one guy's not moving. The hours were weird, but you got like 43% shift allowance. So whatever you were earning, you were literally on time and a half for as you worked there. I come across space I come across something on the Severn Bridge. There used to be services on the Severn Bridge going into England. And there was a game there. I don't know what it was. And then there was Space War, because that's where they sent me on a training course when I joined the computer department there. You see, they were running mainframes, and they had games there, and they had them on 7-inch tape reels. And it was a case of, put this on and it would play a tune very, very badly through the speaker. I think there was a 1 hour, this was all printout. It was teletypes and everything. And you could play One Arm Bandit on that and it would come up and say cherry, orange or something like that. And that was kind of the extent of the games that came with an ICL machine. But as to getting involved, no, I wasn't really, it didn't fire me. It didn't inspire me. I liked the idea. You see, as part of this training course, they sent us on. We had to do an ONC in business studies. The fact that it's not on my resume should tell you how good I was at it.
You just don't like to gloat.
I don't like to boast about my accomplishments. It was awful. I mean, it was accounts, statistics, economics, and contract law. And no, English, no. But they had a library there, and they had, was it Donald Alcock's basic book, which is the one that reads like a comic, and it's got and at the same time, the Daily Mail were doing this story about American computers and how these daft Americans had a computer in their house and stuff. And I thought, I like that. And then I learned to program, and of course, cocked it up completely by buying one of those Sinclair pocket calculator things. Now I haven't got it here. I could probably show it to you. It still works. Plastic, the same quality as the Jupiter Ace, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I can picture it. I can picture it already in my mind. Yeah,
Actually, I had to think about this. Was the second one I had, because I found the first one I had, when you pressed down on one of the keys, the display dimmed. I think it was not because of some fantastic rerouting of electrons through different parts, but just because the case was pushing against some component on this.
It's grounding out. Yes.
But it had something like 32 bytes of RAM. I've got the manuals. Like you could buy these programs. You had to type them in steps. I think it was all done in nibbles in 4-bit or even 2-bit. No, 4-bit probably. And you could play Lunar Lander on your calculator. That the game where you are this high off the ground, and it would tell you how much fuel do you want to burn. Tap tap tap, enter. You are now this high off the ground. How much fuel do you want to burn?
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah.
And that was sort of my first. But that was kind of a misstep. I should have ignored that completely and gone straight to a TRS-80. But as I said, bloody expensive.
No worse. So the TRS-80 was the your first computer, and it's that shop in New Barnet, wasn't it, that we were talking about?
The comp shop, yeah.
Everybody's been to that shop to get their first computer pre-ZX81 for sure.
Well, I think you've seen the advert, I hope, the ones I
Yes.
sent you. I mean, I think they were the only UK 101 suppliers. I
Mhm.
mean, you could buy a NASCOM, I know, in Tottenham Court Road. And of course, UK 101 was inspired, shall we say, by the NASCOM,
Mhm.
to put it mildly. Yeah, that way, it was down to two at the end. It was, shall I buy a NASCOM or shall I buy a TRS-80? And there's the shops, and the comp shop up in New Barnet selling TRS-80s without the screen and without the tape recorder, which is what you had to buy
Mm.
with a TRS-80. What did they do with them? I don't know. Where did they get units only? Did they buy the
Well,
whole thing in?
yeah, well, this is a strange thing because well, the TRS-80 is quite an interesting computer from what I've gleaned about it. Is the fact that Charles Tandy, someone designed this computer. Charles Tandy said, right, okay, we'll make one per store, in America. So he built 10,000 because he didn't think he'd sell any more than that. And then when the order book got full up, and they said, well, it looks like we're going to need about 50,000, just to
Yeah.
replace the ones that we've already sold. He said the only thing I've ever sold 50,000 of is batteries. So he said, I don't really know, but yeah. So they kept up. They did a couple of models, but the Model One, I think, or the modulator and all that must have been sort of like retrofitted to get over.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the supply of them was like, I think it was at Model 3 they probably kept up. There was a problem in the USA with the Mark One, that the RF coming off of it was a problem for the regulators. They didn't like the fact that a computer could interfere with other signals. But what they didn't realise was that people were buying these computers, sticking them in factories, and it might have actually been the factory equipment that was causing problems and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's really strange. So for him to wind up in a shop in New Barnet, that's just sort of like it's an interesting juncture, and I don't think many people probably outside the United States would understand that that there was a following for such a computer, because it's very much from what I understand, it's a holy trinity between that, Apple, and the Pet in America. So it's very fascinating that they got over it.
Well, the comp shop, as I said, its actual appearance belies its two-page spread advert where you think you're dealing with a major warehouse somewhere. It literally just was a pokey little shop. I bought it, and I bought two games to go with it. I bought two Scott Adams adventures.
Mm. Mm.
Then I was taken up the little wooden stairs to the second floor, or the first floor, depending if you're American or British, I suppose, where the two Scott Adams adventure games were copied off for me. I shall say that. Also, in a fantastic, in a fantastic meta, the copier tape that was used to copy the games was then copied and given to me as a copy. So, but I went there a second time to buy what is probably the worst peripheral for any home computer ever.
Go on.
That was, I don't know, I'm going to say it. I don't know if it'll ring any bells. The Exatron stringy floppy.
Do explain more about the Exatron stringy floppy.
Do you know Sinclair microdrive cartridge?
I've chewed a couple up.
Exatron stringy floppy, same idea. Better build quality. The cartridges were about the size of a credit card. Endless loop of tape that you just wrote to as fast as you could. You had to move it to the right position and everything. Totally useless for the TRS-80, really. There's nothing you could do with it. It just seemed like a good idea at the time. About as useful as a Sinclair ZX microdrive. Oh, the TRS-80, they used to say the TRS-80 was the only computer you could physically damage.
Right.
Because it used to be this thing that says, oh, it doesn't matter what you type on the keyboard, you can't damage it. I'll add to that later on. There is a Spectrum model you can damage, and I did. But the TRS-80 had a cassette, or a read switch, a little read relay switch, which was basically a little piece of glass about that big with a little bit of, I don't know, metallic magnetic material in it, and it opened and shut. And they worked out that if you could flick this faster and faster and faster, you could get sound out of it. There's about, any kind of vibration, you could get sound. And you would get sound out of it, except that you would really drastically damage, reduce the life of the cassette interface. Now, the other machine that you could break, which may come as a surprise to you, was the disc-based ZX Spectrum, the Plus 3.
Right.
The one with the
Yeah.
floppy, with its floppy disk. Because I did. What you had inside to control the heads of the disc was a spiral, a plastic spiral. And I did one game, I think it was Tusker, I think it was, and I had, you got the disk loading code from, I don't know who it was, but it was custom code and it was designed this and that, and it was like, do not enter anything more than this value. And of course, I entered more than this value, and the heads went on the spiral, and dropped off the end.
No, wow.
There was no end stop. There was no end stop on the spirals. They just assumed that everyone would use these values between X and Y. But if you used Y plus 10 or 20, just kept going and going and going and going, and plopped off the end.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah.
I had to take it back. I only had it about a week or so. I had to go back and say, it doesn't work. I don't know why.
Oh, crikey.
I don't know why.
Oh,
but
yeah.
You could probably do that now. I mean, you type the right numbers in on a Plus 3, and goodbye disk drive.
Oh, right. So you can unwind the worm completely. So there might be a few examples on eBay where that's happened, and they say, "Oh, this drive's not working," and but they go for silly money still anyway. I had a Plus 3 actually with a multi-face 3, brilliant bit of kit that was, and I think you spoke about the romantic robot multi-face in your book as well.
Yeah, I've been there. I've been up to their premises. I think that's where I bought it. I actually went up to it'll be in the advert somewhere. I went to there. It was like this old kind of Victorian and Georgian type building in a road. It was nothing. Again, you have in your mind it's this fantastic hub of electronic wizardry because it does all this, that, and the other. It's just a couple of blokes in a house.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, do you remember the Trojan light pen and the Trojan light gun?
I do. Yeah, I remember the Trojan light pen. Yeah. I didn't use one, but it was always advertised in the Daytel Electronics adverts and things like that.
Well, if you want, I can pick up the tablet and show you it. It's down there. It's just down there.
Oh,
yeah,
right.
we used to. It's where I used to live, because I am moved far from where I grew up. Some of where I grew up. You could look out our front window and you could see the back of their house. It's that close, and we used to play with the kids.
Right.
There, they are Trojan, and they are literally about 30. If I go out my front door, I'll be outside Trojan, where Trojan used to be, in about 30 seconds.
Wow. Yeah.
There we are. Centre of excellence where we live.
Well,
all the genius.
Yeah, it seems to be quite a hotbed. I mean, is it? You alluded to Swansea as the area. Would it be that there was sort of like a financial incentive to start up in that part of the world? Because my only knowledge of Wales when I was young growing up was Clwyd, when they did a lot of hot points there, and I think that was probably like an economic thing as well.
Yes, some of the outlying areas, because they were coal towns, coal villages, and when that died, there were incentives to come and work there. I don't think Swansea was that, because if Swansea had that, then no one would have gone to these other places. Swansea, Cardiff, all the larger places. We had Miles Gordon Technology doing the Sam Coupe.
The Sam Coupe, yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. You ain't got one of them under your bed, have you?
No. I had to go up to his house once, but he wasn't in.
Oh,
Took me forever to find. I had to deliver a letter or something to him from someone else, and it took me forever to find. And I thought, I'll knock on the door, we'll have a good old chinwag, Nobody was in. Nobody was home. Roland were there as well, doing their synthesizers up on the estate. It's up. There's loads of little industrial estates and large industrial estates dotted around Swansea, and on one of them, there's a lake, Phoenix Way. You had Miles Gordon Technology up there. You had Roland up there. Who else do we have? There was Abersoft. I don't know if you remember them from the Spectrum. They were further west from here.
Mm-hmm.
There was one other. I come across one other Swansea developer who produced, I know, at least one Spectrum game, but I can't remember.
I guess I'm a terrible joker, but I guess you could say that like Swansea was Silicon Valley, like that.
No, it's nothing like. I've been to Silicon Valley because I worked in America over there. I worked in California for a while, down in Foster City in San Mateo, which is just south of San Francisco. And you've got places like Sunnyvale, Palo Alto, Menlo Park, and Stanford University. See, I don't drive, so I get around either by leg or by two wheels, by bikes. So I couldn't find a push bike. There you are. Let's call it that. For love nor money in any of the there's no shops. There's malls. You either go to Hillsdale Shopping Mall or you go to the Fashion Island Shopping Mall. And they don't sell bikes there. There's no bike shop. In Britain, every blooming village has got a bloke with a dodgy, greasy little room. Oh, go, get his punchy, do puncher, mate.
Yes, you're going to need a cone spanner for that, mate.
Yeah. You want 3/8. You don't want a 3/8, sir. You want a 4/5, mate.
Yes.
And the only one, it was a shop. Obviously, people in Stanford University cycle around the campus quite a lot. So we went off to there one day. As I said, we went over what appeared to be this huge pipe in the road. And it was the Stanford Linear Accelerator where they were doing their, not cyclotron, but whatever it was they were shooting. And I think until the one in Switzerland,
the CERN,
the CERN one, I think that was the biggest one in the world. It was so big there were roads and bridges over it. They just kept going in a line. But I was in. I mean, there's not much to the valley, to be honest.
So what sort of projects were you working on out there? Was that still in the field of computing?
Yeah, that was after the Spectrum died,
yes,
1990. So I had an offer. Do you want to go and write a Sega Master System game in America?
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was over there doing Shadow of the Beast for the Sega Master System.
Oh, right.
With Ed Hickman, another old Spectrum coder.
Yes.
And Simon. I knew you'd ask me this. It's either Simon Foster or Simon Freeman, and I can't remember which. Simon Freeman, because I think Simon Foster did Roller Coaster Tycoon and all those roller coaster games.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Unless I've got it around the wrong way. Which, if you've read my book, you may or may not have spotted the bit about Elite, about David Bell and Ian Braben.
Oh, right. The new duo they're in town.
Yeah. David Bell and Ian Braben. Yeah. Sorry, guys, I got that. Yeah. Yeah, I get my names confused.
Yeah. So what game was that in the Mastertronic game? Was it the Sega game? Was it Shadow of the Beast?
Shadow of the Beast, yes, the Psygnosis one.
Yeah, that was actually quite a decent game, graphically, certainly. Did that actually come out from Spectrum as well?
Yes.
I think it probably did. The games got really good, and then no more. That was it. It's sort of like they reached a critical mass, I think. I guess that's me being selective again, because I was given the chance, like, you want to change your Spectrum, didn't you, Carl? I said, yeah. He goes, yeah, it's about time you went up in it. And my dad's trying to sort of like say, ST or Amiga. Looking back, he was, but he didn't say that, obviously. So I went for a Commodore 64. And they were dead on there. I bought a C64C, picked up a disk drive off somebody who just moved from Germany. So I had all these, never had a new game for it. It was all on the the cracked, and it was the first time I've ever seen cracked stuff in my life. Being on a Spectrum, you could just record stuff in a Amstrad tape deck straight off, and that's fine. They never needed cracked stuff. And then all of a sudden, I'm in this world of cracking. But so I got the Commodore, and then this game called Creatures came out, and it was a 16-bit game really for an 8-bit system. But then it just all suddenly sort of fizzled out. Maybe for me, I don't know, but it just seemed that everything just got really good, and then the progression just went. It was maybe they backported the last few because they could learn a lot more on the 16-bitters, and they gave them more of a sandbox and they could scale back maybe, because you said about Mark Jones doing the ships for R-Type for you, and he based them on the ST.
Yeah, he did those first, and then he'd show me, he'd sort of go, right, and then you do this, and it takes out this color plane or whatever, and you do this, and he takes out this color plane. And I mean, he'd end up with, say, a monographic, and then he'd put in the attributes, and he'd do it that way. And he was doing that before, that was the theory behind Donkey Kong. Rare were saying, look at how fantastic graphics, and because we ported them down from the Silicon Graphics machine or something, and I'd lead into the famous people, Nintendo thinking they were seeing a Silicon Graphics demo.
Mm, mm.
And it was actually running on their machines, and that's how they got involved with Nintendo. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. But that idea that of taking the best quality you've got and then downgrading it to fit on your machine, Mark was really good at that. I mean, that was, he was underappreciated when he came to graphics, probably because he shares the same name with Mark Jones of Ocean.
Yes.
He was also a graphic guy. Good one as well. You see, you had Mark Jones Ocean, you had Mark A. Jones.
Yeah, Mark R or Mark A, wasn't it? I think that's it. Yeah.
And he'd call himself Mac, M-A-K. So I think there was a bit of confusion over the two, but Mark was brilliant stuff. He told me a story of, I know the graphic artist, but I won't mention the name. And it was for a game, and he said he did a brick wall, not a customized brick wall. And he said, well, how many characters do you think, to make up a brick wall? It's one. If you've ever seen Jet Set Willy or Manic Miner, you've got one character and it's just a brick and you just put it. He said he had about 20 or 30 making up this brick wall because he just got the pixel off slightly, unless you get it right. So you get it off by a pixel or two, and then the next one along isn't the same. You've got to put in a new character and then a new character until eventually you end up back, you can use that first character. And he said he was using that. He had so many characters making up a brick wall when all you need is one. And this was 8-bit. I mean, obviously nowadays you can't get away with that in Call of Duty.
No, this is it. And a lot of new games pass me by because I ended up just killing my own battalion by pressing the wrong button, and things like that. And you got a film to watch before you can even start playing these things, So playability is certainly different on those. But I mean, the other thing about R-Type and the games that you worked on were what I'm reassured about in the book. And people are going to have to read the book. I'm not going to go page for page about it, but a few takeaways are from it that you get your best ideas by accident with the bordering of to prevent attribute clash, programming in a border like a donut around a character. You look, that's the simplest thing ever, isn't it? But you did it just to, obviously, because you said that you're rubbish at pixel art, so you just wanted just to do rudimentary shapes and then drop the graphics in later.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, if I could do graphics, if I had any artistic ability, I wouldn't need to pay money later on. I mean, when you're self-employed and and you're not working for a company, or they're just sort of saying, here's a contract, give us the game in 6 months, and it's up to you to supply the sound and the music. Yeah, I mean, it's a name, serendipity, fortunate coincidence. It's how penicillin is discovered, and I'm not going to I'm not putting it up there with that, but I can't draw. I had to come up with tiles that were 4x4 characters because that's what I was decided to use. I can't, it's just draw a circle in the middle, just draw it. I didn't even couldn't even be bothered to fill the end of the blocks. I mean, if I did, it would have color clashed like mad. But you realize, I mean, I did have some idea of what I was doing. It wasn't absolutely a total accident, but I didn't plan it like that. It really was a surprise when I'm seeing color scroll across you're seeing it scroll across the screen at the same time something else isn't, and there's no color clash, and you're thinking, what the. I mean, the technique is pretty straightforward. I said it's used it was used before me, Life Force, that shoot 'em up. You can get away with it because of the black background more, to be honest.
Yeah. I guess, because space shooter, I guess that's, it's all taken care of, isn't it? But it's just I dabbled a little bit with programming when I was learning Fourth, and you didn't realise that collision detection is only searching for a particular, character. If it's looking for space, it's not looking for a space. It's looking for ASCII character 32 maybe, or something like that, and it's and that's when, again, reading what you've written about it previously, it sort of clicks. Everything's just full of click moments in that book, and it's quite interesting. That we mentioned earlier about the TRS-80, and I think in preparation I was going to ask you about squirting code over, and guess what? You had already mentioned that in the book, and that's probably where I got the idea from in the first place. There was another programmer, I think Matt Smith for Jet Set Willy, who used the TRS-80, and I think he his terminology was squirt the code from the TRS-80 and donate the code over to the Sinclair Spectrum. It's something I've always been fascinated by. I mean, how would that have been achieved? Would it just be like just an interface between the two computers?
Yes, yeah. I mean, when I first came across the technique, which was in the magazines, and it would be like, oh, here he's writing Spectrum game. He wrote this on a TRS-80. And you think, well, you can't. TRS-80 hasn't got a color screen, hasn't got that, hasn't got that. But yeah, it's just an assembler on a TRS-80 that produces a binary file.
Mm.
You don't run the binary file on the TRS-80. You just assemble and assemble it. And then you transfer the binary file down a cable to the Spectrum, down a serial cable or something. The first I came across that was when I was finishing off Rampage, and I think it was Super Hang-On. I think Zari and KKJ. I can never remember their real names. They had a PCW 8256. I think they had at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Doing it, and that's when the penny dropped. That's when it was explained to me, this is how you use one machine to code on another. It is a difficult concept. If you're not, it can hit you in the face and you think, how do you do it? How is it possible?
Mm-hmm.
But once you get your head around the fact that you're just compiling the assembler doesn't care what you're assembling, as long as you've got a binary file, you could run it on any damn machine you want.
Yes. So yeah, I guess, and I get it now, because you're not executing the code on the native thing. It doesn't have to not understand it. I mean, because the TRS-80 had like 6 by 3 pixels, and like you say, it's completely black and white, and it would never have. It would have just a big question mark would have just illuminated across the screen if you hit run on it, I guess. And but did you manage the technique with an Amstrad 6128? Was that something that's?
Well, yes, it was. I'm trying to remember. This is going back to Rampage days where we were coming to the end of it. It all got really messy with Rampage. As I said, we got problems with interference because we were next door to a taxi company. So the Amstrad, the machines there were interfering left, right, and centre. We then moved out to these lovely new premises where Catalyst coders invited themselves up, and I said that the landlord came in one day and there's about a dozen scruffy coders dossing on the floor. He's expecting a high-tech computer company, all white coats and
shiny floors,
shiny floors. So got chucked out of that. I mean, and I was in that building on my own, literally on my own. But I think there was a 6128 for a while. You see, I get a little confused because I used to use an Amstrad PCW 8256 to program an old Apricot computer, which before I got involved in the Spectrum.
Right.
So everything tends to get mixed up in my mind. So people, so one person I can say, I used an 8256 to code this game because I can remember connecting things up and a green screen and all that crap.
Yes.
And then you got the 6128. But then Rampage was written without any of that, because when I got down to in-house at Activision, it was me. I think it was. Don't even think it was a micro drive. I think I can't. I can't remember. Help! You tell me. You know more about this than I do.
Well, no, I think you've told me. I didn't really know how the data transfer works, so that's really good to know. And so. The Apricot computer.
Yes.
So was that a computer that was sort of like available before the ZX Spectrum? What was the sort of tech spec on that?
Apricot was a CPM machine, green screen, lovely keyboard, very soft screen. It was trying to, this is at the time when IBM were bringing out the PC, and so you had a lot of competitors, and each one was trying to take a share of the market. You had I don't know if you remember the Osborne, it was a huge carry thing that came,
big luggable thing, yeah,
built in.
Yeah,
the Apricot was kind of like that. It was just a computer. I mean, we look at it now and you say, well, what's different? A computer's a computer. It's either it's either got a tablet computer, it's got Apple in it, or it's got Android in it, or it's got Windows in it. How can you have anything else? If you have another computer, what's it going to run? Is it going to be an Android? Is it going to, But as you say, even with home computers, we had the micro LAN, the FLAN, what was that orange one? The Oric.
Yorick, yes,
Yes,
Tangerine,
and,
yeah.
Oric, the Jupiter Ace. Jupiter Ace. What's it running? Microsoft, Apple, or Android? It's running 4. What?
Which is the best language in the world, actually.
Which is the best language in the world.
I love Forth. It's I'd always been trying to assemble and things, and I didn't get it at all. I was going to the back of the magazines, seeing all this assembler code, just typing it in, getting syntax errors straight off. I didn't understand the need for assembler and things like that. But exactly with you, well, if a command doesn't exist, why not write one yourself? And that's what you can do on Forth, and it's such a wonderful language from my point of view, and it was one that actually made me sort of understand computers and game design. And I only really learned that 10 years ago, Bob. So it's sort of like, again, the revelation of my endless journey. So yeah, it's good. It's good. So how old, if you don't mind me asking, how old were you when you were sort of like doing Rampage and R-Type, when you were sort of like in the, in the sort of like the epicenter of the Spectrum Games boom?
Well, I was born in 1959, so if I was doing Rampage in 88, R-Type in 89, that puts me about 30 years old. But I came to the Spectrum really late. I mean, the Spectrum was launched in 82. And, for 4 or 5 years of that, I was the same as everyone else. I played it. I bought it. I played the games, went to the shows. Some of them, you say about the microfair, that's another thing. But it was only, literally it was an advert in the job center. Literally, up on the wall. Hey, would you like to write games for, And it was like I couldn't get my head around assembly language for years, literally years. And the sticking point was always the same thing. It was why, if I can type CLS on a machine, whatever it was, and it clears the screen, where in the assembly is the CLS command? Because obviously it's type CLS, it's going away and it's getting the command from somewhere. I'm not even the code. Where is CLS? And it goes there. And you look there and it goes load HL this, load DE that, load LDIR. No, I can't see CLS anywhere around here. Why is it that kind of thing? I couldn't knit the two together. And then when I got to the Jupiter Ace, and it was like, this is how you create commands, and you go, wait a minute, there is no clear screen command unless you make one, and you make one by typing this code in. So if I type this code in and it clears the screen, if I type this code in the assembler, that I've just seen in the ROM disassembly book or whatever, will it work? Will it, oh, look, it works. Now, why does it work? Oh, 160, oh, that's a screen start. Oh, what does LDIR do? Oh, moves a block of code. Oh, what? Oh, data, 0. Oh, so that's how you do it, clear. You've got to make things. Where's the print command? I need to print hello world in an assembler. Where's the print? What's the assembler? You've got to write it.
Yeah.
You've got to do it all from scratch. And it was like, right now, I understand this now. You've got to make it from nothing.
Fetching and calling and things like that was just absolutely brilliant. And using things like VRAM, I never realised that what you see on the screen has got its own memory, and things like that. And it's like, wow, you can just put things there if you want to, and you can really make these these machines sort of sing by using all these little tricks. And I find it absolutely amazing. So at the age that you mentioned you were, in your late 20s, how do you deal with the stress and the pressure that I perceived that you'd be under to produce these things for these faceless people that are giving you money, but in return you've got to deliver this by a particular day?
You do it. You just go ahead and do it. I mean, I tried different ways of working over the years. Sometimes I'd say, right, for this project I'll work 9 till 5, Monday to Friday. And then that doesn't work, it doesn't work. Oh, this one I'll do 7 days a week and I'll work 16 hours a day, Mm-hmm. But whichever you come up with, you always end up in the last few months. It's a pay, it's easy enough at the beginning. the thing with any game is you've got to put in the milestones, and before you start, you say, oh, on the first 4 weeks from now, you will see this. 4 weeks after that, you will see this, and if they see it, then they pay you. If they don't see it, you don't get paid. That's the milestone. So at the start, it's pretty straightforward. You've got a lot of time on your hand. You've got a month to come up with a scrolling screen and a sprite kind of thing, which you can do in a day or two. So you tend to, there is no stress at the start. It does increase at the end, not because you have to come up with stuff, because you either can do it or you can't do it. And that's, they're paying you to do it. And you can do it. I think I say in the book, when you start off coding, and not necessarily games, for any problem, there are two parts to it. The first part is, how do I do it? And then the second part is, how do I code that idea? I want to do this. How am I going to do it? Oh, you can do it if but then you've got to physically type on the keyboard. That is a two-part problem where you can spend ages thinking over the first part, where you go, how am I going to do it? How do I get 20, 30 sprites on screen? I don't know. How do I get it? How do I get sound out of it? I've got no idea. I've got to go and investigate, research it, test it. As you get over that hurdle, eventually it shifts to, I know I can do it. I just got to type it in. So you do get a lot of stress at the start when not necessarily at the start of a game, but at the start of your programming career, because you're shooting in the dark. You have no idea what targets you're hitting. But after 2 or 3, you start to get comfortable. And if you're any good, like my approach, it's unusual. I've written about this in someone else's book, an American book. They asked me what my approach is. I say I'm very negative at the start of a game or of anything. I will deliberately look to see why things won't work. If someone says, "Oh, do this, that, and the other," I will look at it and go, "No, I can't. It won't. It's not going to do that." And the idea is, if you can get all the negatives out at the beginning, you've got all your problems solved. So I can be very negative at the start of a game, especially if you're with people and they're introducing a game and saying, "Oh, and the game is going to do that, and we want you to do this, that, and the other." And you go, "No, can't be done." And it sounds like you don't want to do it, but it's not. It's you coming up, their ideas you can see are going to lead to a dead end. So you get very negative. Now at the end, when you say about stress, yes, it can get very stressful. And I used to warn people. I'd say, like in the last month or 2 months of the game, I am not going to be a very nice person. I will be very short. I'll be very abrupt. I won't have time for you. I'll probably annoy the hell out of you. You won't like me. And that was it. That's because I tended to concentrate on what was in front of me just to finish the damn thing, because that's what you do. It reaches a stage of any project, any coding project, where it goes from, this is fun, I'm enjoying this, to I'm not enjoying this anymore. And hopefully you then get to the third stage, which is I am going to finish this damn thing, and I will, then I can go on the beach and I will lie down. I'm going, but it will be done, to the game. I don't care.
Yeah.
And then that's you enter. I do in any way enter this mindset where, oh, would you like to come out for no, sorry, got to do this. Oh, but look, I told you I'm doing this. And you get to be very, and it's not anger against them. It's because you've got to. Yeah, that's how you finish games. That's how you that's how you write games. You just have to keep plugging away to the end. I mean, what do they say? Something like 90%, the crap, 90% of so much is done in 10% of the time, and then the final 10%, takes 90%, and whatever. But I've never really got that stressed because I've always managed to do what I set out to do. Nearly got stressed on Dragon Breed, which was the last game I was doing, because I couldn't get anything to work on that, and it was really approaching deadlines, and I was panicking. But I got it in the end. But it's confidence in yourself. It's confidence in your abilities. And you only get that by going through this thing of how do I do this? How do I do that? I mean, to be honest, a lot of stuff, once you've written 3 or 4 games or whatever, there's not much new in the world.
Yeah, you understand the playfield so well, really.
The screen scrolls, the sprites move. Yeah, they may move in a different way than they did in the last game, but it's the same concept. This happens, that happens. There's collision detection, there's bullets, there's jumping, there's whatever. If you've done it once, You don't have to worry about how you're going to do it a second time. You just
Yeah.
do, So there's not much. I didn't find much stress once I probably got past about Dragon Breed, really. And then everything was like, oh, okay, I can do this.
So what's the you ever see the film Misery where he allows himself one cigarette when he finishes a novel? What's the thing that you do when you know you finished you've got that cassette in a jiffy bag, off it goes, and you go, I've done nothing. What was the first thing you treat yourself to?
Nothing really. Just stop. Just gladness. Thank God it's over. Thank God. It's not really a celebration. It's just the pressure is taken off your shoulders, and the fact that you can sit down and watch television without feeling guilty. I think that's probably it. Watch a film or go to the cinema and not feel that the 2 hours or whatever you spent sitting in the dark watching something, you could have been, writing a Sprite routine or something. It's just, thank God that's over.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are they going to pay me? That's if you want to stress, am I going to get paid?
Yeah, that's probably the difference between pressure and stress right there. That's for sure. So you mentioned earlier, obviously, you think you put yourself into a negative mindset when you're looking at a project and all that. Do you think that's why? Do you think R-Type picked you rather than any other programmer?
I mean, when the games were allotted to us, and I do mean allotted, you will be doing R-Type. I didn't immediately think, it's going to be full color and it's going to be this, that, and the other. As I said, it was an accidental discovery. It turned out the way it did. Do I put myself, no, I mean, the game's linear in that once you've done one routine, you can reuse it again and again and again. When it's a doable thing. It's then working. It's then problem. I always like solving problems. How do you get a big ship? That's 2 screens wide. How do you move that around the screen? The answer is very slowly. You can't scroll it. You can't. The machine's not there. People say about slow down. The game runs slow and everything. Well, try playing the arcade version. It runs slow as well. If you ever get into some of the later levels, it grinds, which you don't ordinarily see. The idea is that you're so busy doing something, you don't feel it. You're too busy shooting, trying to stay alive. You don't notice that the game's not running at 50 frames a second, which it never was.
Yeah.
It's chugging along. Some people spot that. But it goes with the territory. The thing is, if you open up an R-Type board, you'll see that I know this for Atomic Robo Kid, which was an Irem game. You'll see a Z80 chip in there, and the Z80 chip is just for the sound.
Oh, right.
It's the main processor. I think was not sure on R-Type on Atomic Robo Kid. It was a 68,000.
Right.
I think it was. There's a Z80 in there for the sound. And suddenly you've got to write these games where everything runs on a Z80. And what was it running at? 3.5 megahertz?
3.5, I think. Yeah, not much more than that. And it's weird because one game I remember, I think it's Irem as well, was Karnov, and I don't think you were involved with Karnov, were you? But
no.
The magazine screenshots look very sharp, nice, and runs really well with no attribute clash around anything. But when you actually play it, it's sort of like it hadn't used any of your techniques at all, which was a shame, because again, that just goes to show where a technique that you picked up really does just alter a game. If only other people could have adopted that technique as well and understood it, I think it would have made a lot of games a lot more playable. But again, another IRM game, it seemed that they were sort of like flooding the market towards the end, like 88, 89.
Well, Don Priestley was a master of that with Trapdoor, Benny Hill, Madcap Chase, Flunky, Popeye.
Popeye, yeah.
He's moving big sprites, big colourful sprites around the screen.
Really big, like cartoons, aren't they? Yeah.
there is a little bit, you've got to have a little bit, but, look at Trapdoor. It's fantastic. It's, it is like playing a cartoon, and and Trapdoor works again because you've got a lot of black paper, a lot of black background. So, you can get away with bleeding colors and things, but he was a master at it. That's how to do a proper attribute moving game. Yeah, my Karnov, yeah. Too much colors. You can think, I can do this. I'm going to go to an extreme. I've fallen for that in other games. I've tried to put as much as I can into some of my Game Boy games, and you realize the hardware can't take it. I'm trying to do too much. You've got to cut back, but I don't want to cut back because I want it to be as accurate as I can make it. But Karnov, something like Golden Axe, I think, Altered Beast, where you've got multicolored, you've got a colored background.
Yeah.
And, the Wally games, the Micro, 3 Weeks in Paradise and stuff like that, they used to come with a switch. You could say, look, do you want to play it so that when your character goes over a background, it changes the color of the background? Or do you want Wally to change to the color of the background? You had a choice.
Yes.
Does it take a background color, or does it go in reverse? So you've got some kind of choice there. But as soon as you start putting in messy background, colorful backgrounds on a spectrum, you've got to move everything on characters, but then characters have got to have a border, some kind of black border around them, which is what Karnov does. Yeah. And R-Type gets away with it because, yes, everything moves on characters. It's not unique in that, but the background scrolls on pixels, which I don't know what else does. Does Exelon? No. There's a vertical scroller that does that.
Does Iridium do that? Should I mention it? I don't know.
Well, Iridium's mono, I believe.
Yes, it is actually. Yeah, it's monochrome. Yeah, so
monochrome. I mean, but even then, you can use the same technique. You can scroll the backdrop on pixels and move the sprites on characters.
Yeah, it looks like a lot more's going on though when you're doing that. I think
it might be some. I think Operation Wolf does something like that, isn't it?
That's monochrome as well, I think, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, that's a monochrome game, but because it just smoothly scrolls along.
Yes.
But then you've got all these big things popping up and helicopters and people throwing grenades at you.
I understand now. Yeah. So you've got things moving up to yeah. It is a very good game, that Operation Wolf as well.
You couldn't use R-Type technique for that because, as I said, the technique really is just you can put two colors together as long as in between them there's an empty black square or there's a square that is common to both. So you've got, say, the end of a white thing here and the beginning of a yellow thing there, but they will both share, that's their ink color in Spectrum, but their paper is black. So as they're moving along, you don't see the transition because there is no transition. It looks good, but
it's getting wiped out in the border. Yeah, that's it.
If you scroll in on horizontally, you put everything, your colors on horizontal planes. But if you're going up and down the screen, then you do the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
You have to leave gaps. That's a kind of secret to R-Type. If you look, there are gaps everywhere. Hopefully, all the same color next to each other.
And that's all that we got time for in this episode, but stay tuned for more episodes featuring Bob Pape. If you've liked what you've heard, then do subscribe to the podcast or follow it any which way you can. It's available on all podcast platforms for streaming and for download. If you feel that way inclined, you can buy me a coffee on ko-fi.com/bitehigh. Any money I do get just offsets the podcast hosting costs. It is only a hobby, so that would be jolly good if you did that. If you want to leave any feedback, you can do by joining the Discord and leaving feedback there, or you can @ me at TeddyTextR on X. I'm also available on Blue Sky as well. Bite High No Limit was presented by me, Carlos. It was edited by Dan Farrimond, and it is a Bite High No Limit production. So until next time, keep it blocky.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.